Ma'am, we need to search everything. Open the bag completely. The woman at the military checkpoint didn't argue. She unzipped it calmly, no complaints, no attitude. Then a folded cloth fell out with a patch embroidered in gray thread, a wolf silhouette fading into fog. The Ghost Recon insignia. Her name was Evelyn Shaw, 42 years old, former Special Forces technician, now dressed in faded civilian work clothes, worn canvas jacket, carrying a dusty olive backpack. She arrived at Northwell Base checkpoint around noon, holding a temporary visitor pass to consult on a classified radar calibration issue. The young gate soldiers, Private Danner and Sergeant Kells, checked her ID and immediately became suspicious. Civilian contractor, pass expired 2 weeks ago. Sergeant Kells frowned. Ma'am, we need to search everything. Open the bag completely. Evelyn didn't argue. She unzipped it calmly, no complaints, no attitude. Out came her tools, a compact soldering iron, digital optic calibrator, a folded military map, and a heavy logbook filled with technical notes. Sergeant Kells noticed the military-grade equipment and grew more suspicious. Where did you get this gear? You're not cleared for any of this equipment. They began searching more aggressively, ripping through inner compartments, tearing at the lining. From a hidden pocket fell a folded cloth with a patch embroidered in gray thread, a wolf silhouette fading into fog. The Ghost Recon insignia. Evelyn said nothing, just looked straight ahead with the patience of someone who'd been through much worse interrogations. What the guard saw was a suspicious civilian with expired paperwork and military equipment she shouldn't have. What they didn't realize was that they were looking at someone whose name had been erased from official records for reasons they couldn't imagine. The Ghost Recon unit had been disbanded after a classified operation went wrong. Officially, all members were listed as killed in action. Unofficially, a few had survived, but chose to disappear rather than face the political consequences of a mission that had never happened. Evelyn was one of those ghosts, living in the space between official existence and complete anonymity. Right then, Colonel Mark Ramsey, the base senior officer, happened to pass by the checkpoint. He was heading to a routine briefing when he caught a glimpse of something that made his blood run cold. The Ghost Recon patch lying on the inspection table. He stopped immediately, stepped forward slowly, eyes fixed on the emblem he hadn't seen in over a decade, and whispered to the guards, "Stand down. Do not touch anything else. That's Ghost Recon." The guards looked confused, but they knew enough to follow a colonel's direct order. Colonel Ramsey immediately pulled Evelyn aside into the interior checkpoint office, leaving the confused guards outside. Private Danner and Sergeant Kells whispered to each other. Ghost Recon? That unit isn't even listed in current databases anymore. Why would a colonel care about some old patch? Inside the office, Ramsey spoke to Evelyn directly. "We thought your entire team was killed in action during the 2012 ambush in the Kandahar province." Evelyn responded with steady calm. "That's what the official records say. But some of us walked out of that situation. We weren't supposed to exist after that." She placed her logbook on the desk. It was filled with encrypted notes, radio frequencies, and detailed drone interference patterns. Ramsey studied a recent entry that made him pause. This interference signature, it matches the anomalies we've been chasing for 3 months. "How do you know about our classified training operations?" Evelyn replied matter-of-factly, "Because there's a backdoor signal being broadcast to your training drones. Someone is deliberately interfering with your systems. It's not equipment failure." Ramsey leaned back in his chair. "Why didn't you come forward with this information sooner? Why the expired visitor pass and the unofficial approach?" Evelyn's expression didn't change. "Because the last time I tried to help officially, they erased my name from every database. Ghost Recon doesn't exist. I don't exist. But the threats to your operations are very real." The colonel quietly signaled to a tech officer through the window. "I need you to verify this handwriting against any legacy recon documentation we have. Look specifically for call sign Shadow 9. Meanwhile, Evelyn remained seated completely calm, as if she'd been through this verification process many times before. 20 minutes later, the tech officer returned with a folder marked Classified Historical. "Sir, the handwriting is a perfect match. This is definitely Shadow 9. She was a signal intelligence specialist who designed the counter-jamming protocols we still use today. Ramsey looked at Evelyn with new understanding. You built the systems that are currently protecting this base. I built the foundation. But someone has figured out how to exploit the weaknesses I couldn't solve 12 years ago. The colonel realized the full scope of what was happening. You're telling me that our current security vulnerabilities stem from incomplete solutions in your original Ghost Recon work. I'm telling you that whoever is targeting your drones knows exactly how Ghost Recon systems work. They're using our own techniques against you. Ramsey understood the implications immediately. If someone had access to Ghost Recon methodologies, it meant either classified information had been compromised or another surviving member of the unit had gone rogue. Who else from your unit survived? Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. I hoped I was the only one. But the signature patterns in your drone interference, they look familiar. The colonel made a decision that would change everything. What do you need to fix this? 48 hours of access to your drone control systems, and a small team of technicians who can follow instructions without asking questions. Done. Over the next 2 days, Evelyn worked with a closed team of 3 trusted technical officers that Colonel Ramsey had handpicked. She moved through the base's drone systems like someone who designed them personally, because in many ways she had. Lieutenant Graham, one of the younger techs, initially doubted her capabilities. Sir, are we really trusting our entire drone program to someone with an expired visitor pass? But after watching Evelyn work for 6 hours, his skepticism vanished completely. She installed countersignal patches that blocked unauthorized access attempts. She reprogrammed fallback frequencies using encryption methods that weren't in any current manual. Most importantly, she identified the exact source of the interference. Lieutenant Graham whispered to Colonel Ramsey, "Sir, she's not just fixing our system. She built half of it. The core architecture we've been using, it's all her design." Meanwhile, rumors spread throughout the base. That woman at the checkpoint last week, she's some kind of legend. Heard she was Ghost Recon. Thought that unit was mythology. Colonel Ramsey personally vouched for her. That doesn't happen. On the 3rd day, Evelyn's work paid off in the most dramatic way possible. During a routine training mission, 3 drones simultaneously lost GPS signal and began flying erratic patterns that would have resulted in crashes. But Evelyn's new protocols automatically engaged, maintaining stable flight until manual control could be reestablished. Without her intervention, the base would have lost $50 million in equipment and possibly injured personnel on the ground. That evening, Colonel Ramsey called a base security briefing with all senior officers present. 3 days ago, we nearly lost multiple aircraft to what we thought was equipment failure. It wasn't failure. It was deliberate sabotage, using techniques specifically designed to exploit our systems. He gestured to Evelyn, who was standing quietly at the back of the room. Thanks to Evelyn Shaw, call sign Shadow 9, from Ghost Recon, this base is not only still operational, but now has the most advanced drone security protocols in the military. A major in the front row asked, "Sir, Ghost Recon was disbanded over a decade ago. How do we verify her credentials?" Colonel Ramsey pulled out a classified folder. "Because I was there when her unit saved 47 soldiers during the Kandahar ambush. I was one of those soldiers." The room fell completely silent. Shadow 9 didn't just design our current systems. She risked her life to keep those systems operational under enemy fire, while her unit provided cover for a full evacuation. He turned to Evelyn and, without hesitation, saluted her in front of the entire command staff. "Ma'am, it's an honor to finally thank you properly." But Evelyn's response surprised everyone. "Colonel, I didn't come back for thanks. I came back because I recognize the attack pattern. Someone else from my unit is responsible for these intrusions." The room erupted in whispers. A rogue Ghost Recon operative was a scenario nobody had considered. Who? I have my suspicions, but I'll need more time to be certain. What I can tell you is that this won't be the last attempt. Ghost Recon was trained to be persistent. Colonel Ramsey made an immediate decision. "Ma'am, I'm offering you a permanent consultant position. Full security clearance restored. Help us stay ahead of whoever is doing this." Evelyn considered the offer. I'll help you catch them. But I work alone, and I don't want my name in any official databases. Some ghosts are better left that way. 3 weeks later, the answer came the most unexpected way. Private Danner was working the midnight shift when he noticed unusual activity on the perimeter sensors. Movement patterns that seemed too coordinated to be wildlife, too subtle to be casual intruders. He followed protocol and called Colonel Ramsey, who arrived within minutes. Together with Evelyn, they reviewed the sensor data. "It's him," Evelyn said quietly, pointing at the movement patterns on the screen. "David Chun, my former teammate. He moves exactly like that. Systematic, patient, methodical. The one you thought was dead, the one I had to leave behind." Colonel Ramsey activated base security protocols, but Evelyn stopped him. "Colonel, if David wanted to cause damage, he would have done it already. He's here to talk. Let me handle this." Against every regulation and his better judgment, Ramsey agreed to let Evelyn meet with the intruder alone. She walked to the coordinates where the sensors had detected movement. Hands visible, no weapons. In the shadows near the equipment shed, she found him. David Chun, 43 years old, wearing dark civilian clothes, looking exactly like the teammate she carried dog tags for over a decade ago. "Hello, Evelyn." "David." She kept her voice steady, professional. "I thought you were dead. I carried your tags out of Kandahar. I know. I don't blame you for that. I blame the people who sent us into a trap and then erased us when it went wrong." They stood in silence for a moment, two ghosts meeting in the darkness. "Why are you here, David?" "Because I've been tracking the real threat. The drone interference wasn't random, Evelyn. Someone's been using modified ghost recon protocols to probe military installations. They're preparing for something bigger." He pulled out a tablet and showed her data patterns that made her blood run cold. "These attacks aren't coming from inside Ghost Recon. They're coming from someone who studied our methods and improved on them. Foreign intelligence? Worse. Private military contractors with access to classified methodologies and no oversight. They've been hired to test security at various bases, but they're keeping the vulnerability data for themselves." Evelyn studied the information. "You've been working to stop them?" "I've been working to warn you, because their next target is Northwell. The protocols you've implemented here make this base a prime testing ground for advanced cyber warfare techniques." The next hour was spent in detailed technical analysis. David's intelligence was solid. A private military company was indeed planning a major cyber attack on Northwell, using sophisticated methods that could compromise not just drone operations, but entire base communications. "We need to tell Colonel Ramsey," Evelyn said. "We need to stop them first. If we alert official channels, they'll disappear and resurface somewhere else. But if we can catch them in the act, we can end this permanently." Working together for the first time in over a decade, Evelyn and David developed a trap. They would allow the attackers to begin their intrusion, but channel them into isolated systems where their methods could be analyzed and their identities revealed. The attack came 2 days later, during routine training exercises. As predicted, the intruders began with drone interference, but quickly escalated to attempting access to communication networks and personnel databases. Evelyn and David were ready. Using techniques that existed in no official manual, they tracked the attackers back through their own networks, identifying not just their location, but their employers, their methods, and their future targets. When the trap was complete, they had evidence that would shut down an entire network of military contractors who had been selling security vulnerabilities to foreign governments. Colonel Ramsey, briefed on the operation after its completion, looked at the evidence with a mixture of admiration and disbelief. "You two did more in 48 hours than military intelligence has accomplished in 6 months." David Chun spoke for the first time since arriving at the base. "Colonel, we did what we were trained to do: protect American military assets from sophisticated threats. The only difference is that now we do it without official recognition. Are you asking for reinstatement?" Evelyn and David exchanged a look that spoke of shared understanding. "No, sir. We're asking for the freedom to continue protecting installations like this one, without the bureaucratic constraints that nearly got us killed the first time. 6 months later, Sergeant Danner was training new checkpoint personnel when he noticed two figures approaching the gate, Evelyn Shaw and David Chun, both carrying properly authorized consultant credentials. "Security assessment team?" asked the new private. "Something like that," Danner replied, watching them pass through the checkpoint with the quiet confidence of people who belonged wherever they chose to be. The small steel plaque outside the checkpoint had been updated once more. "In honor of those who serve in silence, protect without recognition, and choose duty over glory. Ghost Recon lives on." But the most important change wasn't written anywhere. It was a knowledge that sometimes the most critical protection comes from people who prefer to remain invisible, and the most valuable expertise belongs to those who've chosen silence over spotlight. Evelyn Shaw and David Chun continued their work, moving from base to base, always one step ahead of threats that most people never knew existed. They were ghosts by choice now, not by circumstance. And in a world that often forgot its protectors, they serve as a reminder that the most important legends are the ones that live on not in official records, but in the quiet dedication of those who refuse to let their missions end just because their service was never officially recognized. Some stories are worth telling, not because they celebrate glory, but because they honor the choice to keep serving even when no one is watching. That's the real meaning of untold valor. Not the courage that seeks recognition, but the courage that continues in silence, protecting those who will never know they needed protection. We need to remember our legends, especially the ones who prefer to remain hidden. Because sometimes the greatest act of heroism is choosing to stay a ghost rather than seeking the spotlight. And the most important victories are the ones that prevent disasters no one ever knows were coming.